Okay, so yeah, you'll have templates on the left-hand side. The first category are phone and tablets. This is the category that I use all of all of the time. But then you have like Wear OS, which is their like smartwatch um, division. And then you have Android TV, and then automotive. I think it's called Android Auto. But I haven't again gotten into those. So phone and tablet is where it's at, and these are a bunch of different templates depending on what you're working on. Um, so you have a basic activity. It'll have like a toolbar, which is what shows up at the top of your app. This right here is called the floating action button. But we are just going to do an empty activity and work from the ground up. But before I do that, let me go over a couple more examples. There is a tabbed activity. So Reddit, the Android Reddit app has a bunch of tabs for like the different subreddits that you can go to. So that's one example of what you might use that for. Then you have your standard login activity here, um, which is pretty straightforward. All right, so we're gonna do basic empty activity. We'll hit next. You'll give it a name. I already kind of went through this earlier to test it out because it was running kind of slow, but you'll give it whatever name you want. So let's say BDPA showcase. And then the package name is basically if you have like a company or website, whatever your domain name is backwards. So right here it's showing like the Adesia domain. So it'll start like app.adesia and then the name of your project. So if we were doing like bdpa.com, it would be what did I do? I left it at well. You'll do com.bdpa and then BDPA showcase. So,
Is your computer okay?
I hit insert
Yeah.
and I don't know how to turn that off on a Mac.
Oh, I can't help you there. I
Okay,
like
here it is.
hopefully it works.
Okay, com.bdpa, or is it org or whatever, and then BDPA showcase. Okay, and then there's the save location, basically where you're gonna access the project file. So sometimes you'll want to get in here and see like your uh, resources. So if you wanted to add an image to your project manually, that's one reason why you might access this save location. So next you'll have your language. So it used to be Java was the default, and it still basically is, but Google's switching over to Kotlin as the new primary language. And Kotlin and Java are pretty much the same, but Kotlin kind of makes a few things simpler that Java, like you would take 5 lines to do the same thing you would do in like 3 lines in Kotlin. So that's the new hot thing. And I actually do recommend it. I've switched over, or I'm in the process of switching over to it, and I like it a lot. All right. And then, so your minimum SDK, what that is on Android, you have the SDK, and which is basically the version number. And they used to be named after like desserts. So version 5 was lollipop. I think 6 was like marshmallow, et cetera, et cetera. So your minimum SDK is the smallest Android version that you want your app to target. And 21 right here is the default, but you can go back as far as 16. And right here, it'll tell you how many of the available Android devices it would cover if you were to go back that far. Now, we'll say that certain like APIs and things like that, they require like a higher Android version to work properly. So like if you did version 16 and you were trying to use like an API from a different company, it'll say that you can't use that. You'll have to increase the minimum SDK version. So I'll leave that at the 21, which is the default. It'll say you're covering 98% of devices, which is pretty good for us. Usually you won't change any of these things.
Are we doing Java or Kotlin?
Um,
I had a question.
Yes.
At everyone's project here, y'all. Are you guys using Java or Kotlin?
The social speaking Java, so we're just
Yeah,
doing Java.
Yeah, I started Java.
Okay, cool. So leave it at the language as Java, and then you hit finish. It'll start creating like your like basic templates in the background. Let me make this full screen. What's those? Down here at the bottom, it's doing a lot of background configuration. So once this is finished, the items on the left-hand side will load, and then your project will be loaded, which means you're ready to go. So when you create a project, this is the default view that you will see. Right here, it'll open your main activity. Your main activity is basically like your starting point for your project, like the foundation of it. And as you create activities, you'll interact with this specific one, or you can create another activity, and that could be your main activity, and this is like a support kind of thing. We'll go over this in a little bit. So on the left-hand side, we have our project view, and basically these are all the files for your project. And while you're working on your project, the main like packages and folders that you'll be working with are your project folder down here. This is where all of your like Java code will go. And then down here is a resources folder that's broken down into 4 different categories. So you'll have drawable files. Right now, the one that's in there is the app icon. But you'll put like pictures and things like that, whatever. If you have custom icons, those will all go in your drawable folder. And then the next one up is the layout folder. So all of your main activities will need a layout to like connect to each other. So right here in this main activity, it says set content view, which is activity r.layout.activity main. And this is activity main here. Basically, this is the layout for the main activity. So as you create activities, you'll create a layout for each one. And the activity is like the background. And then your main or your layout is the foreground. So all of the stuff that the user would see, that's what goes inside of your layout. Then you have your map folder, which is basically the same thing as the drawable folder, but it kind of supports older versions of Android. And then last but not least, you have your values folder. So this is where you'll put like custom colors for your app. Like these are the default that you start with. But if you wanted to create a new color, like you could just do this. Sorry, okay. So what I did was copy and paste the last one, but if you wanted to start from scratch, you do opening tag, you do color, you would give it a name. Say new or something like that. You would give it a value. So I don't know, we'll do FF0094. There, and now that color is added. So as I'm working on my project, I can make a reference to this new color. And I'll leave that for right now. So then the next file we have is a strings file. This is where you'll want to store all of your strings, your text for your project. It's really good for things that repeat a lot, and it's really good when you like want to translate your app from one language to another. Creating a string file, the person that's translating it, they can basically just change let's say I wanted to put some sort of text in Spanish or something like that. The resources string folder makes that a lot easier. And then the third thing is, like, as you're working on different files, instead of let's say you have 5 activities and you hard coded it in all 5 of them, you would have to go in and change it 5 different times. But if you put it inside of this strings file, then you just come in here and change it once, and it changes it across all 5 of those activities. Then after strings, you have themes. I won't get into that, but so let's say you have like a light version of your app or a dark version of your app. Basically, the themes folder lets you create different customization. So if you wanted to give your users the option to install different themes, that's where all those theme files will go. Are there any questions so far?
Yes, could you go back to the colors and show again how you were choosing them? I saw that you put a number in. So how are we, supposed to know? Is there not a choice, like a color palette of choices for us? I'm just asking as a, beginner.
Yeah, sure. So I just typed in a random value for this, but so let's say you're working on a big design, you're part of a big team. Your design team would give you, custom colors with specific values, and then that's where you would enter them here. But if you wanted to add one from scratch, I think you can. So this one I typed, but right here on the side, you can double click this, and you can select like a certain value from this here, or I think you can go. Where is it? I can't find it right now, but to answer your question, yes, there is a chart that you could use, but you could just copy one of these here, paste it, give it a name, and then on the left-hand side, let's say I didn't want this to be this green color, I can change it to like a red or yellow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so that's colors. Let's go back to main activity.
I want to say something about colors. Okay.
Yes.
So these hexadecimal color numbers, these codes, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain those?
No.
Hexadecimals are okay. Colors, you like
Yeah.
you're gonna see them around, but they just represent colors. And red, green, blue. I don't know. It's one of
Yeah.
those
Can
three.
you open back up the color picker?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what tell us.
So
There you go. Oh,
So in hex, each of those colors, red, green, and blue, get 2 letters or numbers inside the hex. So the first 2, FF, means full red. So the red value is really high. And so any number that you choose that has those 2, FF in the beginning, will be super red. It could be red, or it could have really strong red, but also really strong green, in which case maybe you'll end up with some kind of brownish color. But you can go on Google or have a color picker like this and just look up like color picker or hex code creator, and then Google will give you a hex code for a color that you're looking for.
everybody and our team at Odessa, we know our color, our logos, hexadecimal by heart. I already put it like in my Android project, I already put mine in this, but ours is BC0034. And I put Odessa red as my name. Letting y'all, yeah. But yeah, never mind.
Okay. So going back real quick to our main activity, I'm gonna go ahead and run this in our emulator, so we can see exactly what this is showing us. So let me switch. Do you guys know what the emulator is? Or should I explain that a little bit?
Yeah, can you come off mute, students, if you don't know what an emulator is, or raise your hand?
I do not know what an emulator is.
Thank you, Tyler.
Okay, cool. So instead of having your phone, like your physical device, the emulator is like a digital copy of that, where you can mimic having your real device with you. And so that allows you to like run your app and see what it looks like, and then make changes as you go without having to use a physical device. Now, what's cool with Android Studio is like if you would prefer to use a physical device, you can connect it, and then you can run your app on your actual phone too. So when you let's see. When you first run it, I think either the default is this Nexus 5X, or you'll probably have like an empty list and you'll create a device. And then again, on the left-hand side, you'll have the option between a TV, phone, tablet, what have you. And then there's like a list of different devices that you can use. So the top half are like different Google phones, since Android's from Google. And then down here are basically the same thing, but without having like the face of the phone. So this top section, say, let's do Pixel 3 XL or Pixel 3a. When I create this and I hit next, you'll select what Android version you want it to target. So if by default, we were doing version 21. And that's not listed on here because that's kind of an older version, but that allows you to get the software of that Android version, and then you can test your app to the different Android versions. So what developers do in like the professional space, Google's releasing Android version 34 or something like that. They'll release the SDK, and then the developers will download it like you see here, and they'll work on their app. So by the time Google releases it to the public, their app is already working with that version of Android. So that's what having this emulator lets you do. So you'll select your emulator device, then you'll select your system image or Android version. So right now, version 30 is selected. Then you hit next. I usually leave these settings as a default, and then just hit finish, and it'll create that device for us. Down here, it has enabled device frame checked. So like if you wanted to see what the face of the phone looks like for whatever reason, you can leave that as default. Or if you just wanted, the shape of the phone, you can uncheck this. So I'll hit cancel. Okay, so when you run the emulator, this is what it'll look like. Like I said before, it mimics having an actual Android phone. And you can actually like go through and log into Gmail and access your Gmail. So it works exactly like having the physical phone. So if you, let's say you have an iPhone and you don't have an Android phone, that's really, really helpful. So this is our emulator, and now we're going to run our main activity right here so we can see what it looks like. And running it basically installs the app or project that we're working on onto this device, like it would an actual phone. And you'll see like the app icon and stuff, and you'll be able to open it and interact with it. Okay, so this is our empty activity that we selected at the beginning. And let me go back to the layout. You can see on the left-hand side, this is all that's showing for our project, because that's what we selected. And if I wanted to change this right here, real quick, going back. So this is our, again, our layout for our project. And down here on the left-hand side, we have the palette. And all that is like different components that your app might have. So the common ones are our text view, a button, an image view, a recycler view, which is like a list, a fragment container, a scroll view that lets you scroll up and down or left to right, and then like a switch, like turning something on or off. So up here on the top right hand side, you'll see that by default for me, design is selected. And then the next one over is split. So split lets you see the code for this layout. And then you can also have the option of just looking at the code. So let's do split so we can see both our code and design. So by default, our projects here, we have a text view. So breaking it all down, the main, like the base of this layout is a constraint layout. And basically a constraint layout lets you constrain different components of your app to different parts of the screen. So if you don't want, like if I took this and I removed the constraints, it would be at the top left of the screen, and that's not something you would want. So you can like customize it to have it be at a particular level of the screen. So if you wanted this to show up on the top half, you can set that up. Or if you wanted it to be more like top left or top right, whatever, then you can go in and adjust that. And I'll go into that more later on, but that's what a constraint layout lets you do. And there are a couple of different other layouts. Let me go back to palette. You have your constraint layout, you have your linear layout, horizontal. So if you wanted to set up a bunch of like pictures side by side next to each other, you might use a linear layout, and specifically like a horizontal one. So every time you add a new image, it'll just put it right next to the previous one. So that's a linear layout horizontal, and then a linear layout vertical will do the same thing, but going top to bottom. Then you have like a frame layout. Just think of that as like a like the name, an actual frame. You'll have what it lets you do is like stack different things on top of each other, and just kind of create a little bit more complex interface. Then you have a table layout and then a table row. So you can create like rows and columns using that. And then space just lets you do space between objects. All right. Going back to the components. By default, our view has a text view, and we just ran it in our emulator and it put it dead center of our screen because that's how it's set up here. Let's say I wanted to change that text to say hello BDPA. I would just come in here, I would type BDPA, and then you go back up here and rerun the app. And now it's showing with our updated text. And what I just did here was called hard coding. And that's, like I mentioned before, just typing your text by hand. And what's recommended is to use strings. And so let's say, let's go back to our side view here. I'll go back to the strings folder. I will create a new string resource. But it'll look exactly like this right here. So we'll start our opening tag. We'll do string. We'll give it a name. Let's say welcome message.
I got a question, Pamodou.
Yeah.
You have to do this every string ever?
I mean, it just kind of depends on what you're working on, but no, you can leave it hard coded. So for our purposes, it doesn't matter because we're just practicing. But if you're working on like a big project, it's recommended to do the string resource.
Okay, so it is, so that means you are supposed to do it for every string ever.
Yeah, and
It's okay to say that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. I just don't know. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, in our project, I do a combination of both because like if it's gonna show up one time in one space, and I know it for a fact I'm not gonna need it later or need to change it later, I'll just hard code it because that's faster than going through and creating the strings. So and actually, if I go back to our layout file, so I just hard coded it right here. And Android Studio, what's cool is it'll let you, let's say, instead of going back all the way back to our strings file, typing it up, and then coming back here and referencing it, I've already typed up what I want our welcome message to say, right? So I can click here on Windows. I think it's Alt. So you'll hit Alt, Enter, and it'll give this suggestion. You'll hit extract string resource. Now the resource name, so I wanted to say welcome message. And then our resource value is basically what we've typed here. So hello BDPA. And I leave these values alone and then you hit OK. It's giving me an error because I typed it up here. So again, I'll enter extract string resource. We'll give it a name, welcome message, and you'll hit OK. So now it's changed the text to the @string. So that's a reference to the string file. And then welcome message is the name of that string. So if you go to the string file, welcome message, and this is our message right here. So now it's done it, and I can run it, and it'll show up exactly the same. And so instead of switching back and forth between the strings, you'll just, this is a lot faster. Yeah, see, now it shows up hello BDPA. And then I can go here into our string file. I can say, hello world. Welcome BDPA. So here is where you would go back and edit the string, and you'll see right here, it's automatically updated inside of our layout file. And I will rerun that. And it's updated in our project. Cool. Going all the way back to our main activity, we have what's called a on create. Oh, let me start over. So this is an activity, but you also have like fragments and different kinds of Java files that aren't necessarily activities, that are like support files. But you'll create.
Pamodou,